Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, let's do a Debian 10 initial server setup on a VPS. So I hope the video won't be too long, but if it gets too long, I'm going to divide it into different parts. But I hope I can be able to finish everything in one video. So what are we going to do in this video? We're going to do a Debian 10 initial server setup, and I will be using Vultr as my VPS of choice. So if you don't have a Vultr account, you can create yours. And I do have this $100 offer here. If you sign up, you can get $100 credit in your account. And note that the offer is available for a limited period of time. So I hope by the time you're watching the video, it will still be available for you to use. Okay, so I will come back here into products. We'll deploy a server in a moment, but first I will be following along with this post, and I've created this post just to save my time and your time, because everything we need to do will be on this page. So we're going to follow along with this post. So the link will be in the description below. If it's not there, if I forget, just remind me and I will add it there for you. So what are we going to do in this Debian 10 server setup? What you're going to do is, of course, you're going to deploy your server. You can use any VPS platform you want to, but I will be using Vultr, as I've already said. Then you're going to see how you can log into your server. If you're new to this kind of stuff, maybe you're on Windows, you don't know how to log in, you're going to see how you can log in using putty. And if you are on a Mac or Linux, I'm going to show you how you can log in as well using terminal. If you're on Mac or Linux, you'll need to use terminal. Now, the next step, we're going to create a new admin user. Now, the admin user is a user that you can use to run admin tasks, right? Like if you want to run administrative tasks on your server, like installing stuff, uninstalling stuff, updating the server, you normally need the root user. But of course, we're going to disable the root user once we have a new sudo user. And that is for security purposes. And we can also set up a firewall, but I'm assuming that you're probably doing this tutorial. At least for me, I know I'm doing this video so that I can install a control panel on the server, and I will show you how you can install Virtualmin. If you install Virtualmin, it's going to set up some of the firewall rules that you'll need on your server. So we're going to skip this bit. And then the most important part for me is usually the SSH key authentication. So we're going to have an SSH key that you can use to log into our server, and I'm going to show you how you can use putty.Log to generate the key and use it on your server. We're going to see how you can disable the root user and password authentication once we have the SSH key set up. We're also going to need to add a swap file. A swap file is just memory location that can be used when your computer RAM memory runs out. So they will swap files from the memory to the swap file, and you're going to see how to set that up in this video. And then, of course, the last thing I want us to do is to install Virtualmin LEMP stack. If you want to run multiple websites, you can use any free control panel that you want to use. For this video, I'm just going to install Virtualmin, but there are lots of other free control panels that are supported on Debian 10. So I will do a tutorial for CyberPanel. The moment they start supporting Debian 10, I will do a tutorial for Debian 10. Unfortunately, right now, they still don't support it as of the recording of this video. So that's the only reason I haven't done the tutorial, but you can use Ubuntu for that. Since I have a CentOS tutorial with the CyberPanel, CentOS 8 tutorial with the CyberPanel setup, and you can find that in my YouTube playlist if you want to use that. Right, so the first thing, let's go and deploy our server, and I'm just going to come back here under Vultr. Deploying a server is very easy on Vultr. One of the reasons I love to use it is it's very easy to use, a very easy to use platform. Just come here under plus, and we're going to deploy the first server. So you can use cloud compute. You can use cloud compute or high frequency. These are just almost the same. This one is slightly faster and is 20% more expensive than this. So if this is $5, this is going to be $6. If this is 10, this is going to be 12. So that's pretty much how it is, but they have the same offers. And then the next step, once you choose the server that you want to use, I'm going to choose cloud compute. You can choose cloud compute as well. And for this one, let me just choose a location in Europe, and I'm going to choose Frankfurt, Germany. And I will choose a server of 64-bit. You can choose 32-bit or SS. If you don't want to use Debian, you can use whichever operating system is available. You can even install one, upload one. If you have a disk, an ISO file, you can upload one. But for me, I'm going to choose Debian. I'm just going to click there on Debian, and I'm going to choose Debian 10. Now, the next step, let me choose a $5 one, but you can see all the options that are available here for you. Of course, maybe with time you can grow. Just know that if you choose this, you cannot go back, but you can go higher. So if you choose $5, you can start with $5 and you can go higher as your server expands. So I'm going to choose a $5 monthly plan, and I can enable IPv6 support. And you can also enable auto backup. So auto backups are charged at 20% of your monthly cost. So if you choose the $80 server, the automatic backups will be charged at 20% of 80. Right now I have the $5 server, so that's why mine is at $1 a month. If you do have SSH key files, the public file, you can upload it right here. If you've generated the key on maybe Linux, you can upload the public key here. You've generated it on Putty. You might as well upload it here. I'm going to show you how you can set up SSH key when we get there. You can upload it here under SSH keys. So the server hostname, this is very important. For this, if you're going to run your website on this server and probably even send mail, you need a server hostname, and a hostname needs to be a fully qualified domain name for this particular instance. So a fully qualified domain name would be something like a domain name that works, like bizanosa.com. If you want to use a subdomain, you can use a subdomain as well. That's also a fully qualified domain name. A fully qualified domain name is just a domain name that can be accessed if you add the DNS records. So I'm going to use sample.bizanosa.com, and then the server label. This is a label that is available on the server or the Vultr dashboard. On the dashboard, you may have multiple servers, and the label will help you identify which server you're working with. So you can change the name if you want to. For this, it doesn't have to be a domain. You can give it a description if you want to. So that's pretty much it for this. I'm just going to click on deploy. So you can see there is still installing the server. Let's see if we can manage it nonetheless. All right, so we do have an IP address, we do have the root user, and we do have a password. So if you click there, you can view your password. So by the time you're watching this tutorial, I will have destroyed this server, so don't try to access it in any way because the server will not be available. All right, so everything is complete. The next thing, let's log into our server, and first let me show you how you can log in if you're on Windows. So let's open Putty. I'll just go into Start, and I'll search for Putty and open it up. So let me come back here. What I will need from here will be the IP address there, and the password, and the user root. That's what you're going to use to log in. So the host name, this is where you'll put in the IP address. We'll leave it at SSH, and then you can save this session so that the next time you don't have to paste in the IP address. And let's just call this Debian demo. And once you give it a name, you can click there to save. So the next time if you want to log into the server, you can just double click on that. So I'll just double click on that to open it up. And this is the first time I'm opening the server. Yes, let's add this to our host file as a known host. And since I'm recording, I want to increase the font just to make it easier for you. And I'm going to come here under change settings. Then I will go into appearance, and then I want to change the font, and I will use font 18, a font size of 18, and I want that to be saved under my sessions. I'll click on sessions, go into the session that I saved, and I will save it under that. And then I will apply, and as soon as I do that, you can see everything becomes bigger, and that's what I want. So I want to log in as root. Let me come back, and I am going to copy the password. Just click there to copy the password, and then I will log in as root. Enter the password. If you want to enter on Putty, you can paste by right clicking. So if I just right click and then I press enter, so when you type in the password, when you paste in the password, you won't be able to see it. So just press enter. There we go, our server. We've logged into our server. So if you're on a Mac or on Linux, you can log in to your server as well. Let's come back, and I want to copy my IP address. So if you're on a Mac or Linux, just open up terminal. So I'm on Windows, I don't have terminal, but I'm going to use git bash. I can use git bash. Now all I have to do is I'll just type in SSH, and then the user that I want to log in as. If you want to log in as a specific user, you log in as that user. And for me, I only have root as my user in the server. And then at my IP address. So SSH at my IP address, and then as soon as I do this, it's going to ask me for the password. So let me just come back, and I will copy the password again, enter. All right, it wants to add this in the hosts file, enter. Okay, I did not type yes. Type yes. Enter. So I can just paste in the password and you still won't be able to see it. So just press enter once you paste it in. All right, so I'm logged into the server. So if you're in Windows, you can also use git bash if you want that Linux terminal-ish environment to work with. You can do that using git bash. Just download it. Go to Google and search for git bash and you'll be able to download it from Git. I don't know this gitbash.com. I can't remember, but just download Git, the entire thing. It will come with git bash, git command, and git GUI. Right, so that's it for this. Let's go back to Putty. Let's come back into Putty. And we're going to continue with this. So let me just clear my screen. All right, so let's start setting up our server. So let's come here and we've deployed a server. We have seen how we can log into the server. Now the next step is create a new sudo user. So let me add this user, copy. So we're going to add a new user, a new sudo user, and then we're going to make him admin, him or her admin, using that. And this will allow the user to run administrative commands using the sudo command. So anything that the root user can do, this user will be able to do using the sudo command. So let's add the user, add user, and let's give the user a name. I'll just call my new user. And then give the user a strong password. This is important in Debian, a strong password. All right, so the password is accepted. I can skip all this. Just press enter to skip all of this. We need to add this user to the sudo group, and the sudo group have the privilege of administrators. So we're going to add the user to the sudo group. So of course, give it a different name, your user. And I want to copy the name from there, new user. Since I have it selected, I can just right click and it's going to copy that item there. So when you're using Putty, try to avoid right clicking because right clicking will paste items into Putty. So if you are maybe working with a configuration file and you right click on something, you may copy something inside of a config file that you don't need to have there. So try to avoid right clicking. So let's do enter. And as soon as we do that, now this user can use the sudo privileges. Now let's try and log in as this user. And once we log in and we are able to run sudo commands, then we won't need the root user anymore and we'll just stop using it at this point. So just something else here. You may come across a situation whereby the sudo is not recognized on when you're trying to run it. So what you can do is you can install sudo. Okay, first of all, update the server and then install sudo. This used to be a problem in the earlier newer versions of Debian 10. I think right now it just comes with sudo already installed, the minimal version of Debian. So just do that and then restart the server. You can restart your server on the dashboard here. Don't use your terminal to do that. All right, now the next step is for us to try and log in. So let's see if we can log in with the new user we've just created. And I'm going to come in here under Putty and I'm going to start a new session. And I'm just going to double click on the session that I saved. I will put that down. New user, log in as the new user you've set up, the new sudo user you've set up. All right, so we're logged in. The next thing is let's just see if we can run sudo commands. That's the most important thing. So the first time you run sudo, you're going to need to enter the password, and consequently, various number of times once the session expires, once the sudo session expires, you're going to need to add the password again. So that is something that you just need to be aware of right now. So let's try to update the server, and I'll do sudo apt update. Okay, so I need to enter my password for this user. Okay, all packages are up to date, and the fact that this ran, it means that we are ready to go and we can use sudo for all our upcoming commands. Anything that you want to do, any administrative tasks that you want to use on the server, we can now use with the new user and we don't have to use root anymore. And with that, I will just close out this other this other window. So before you close the other window, make sure you can log in and do this sudo admin privileges on your server. I will clear the screen. And the next process, let's see what's next in this server setup. Once we have done that, okay, we need to set up the firewall. Now the firewall thing, we're going to skip this because I'm going to install Virtualmin, and Virtualmin is going to add most of the things we need. But just a brief on which firewall we can use. You can use the uncomplicated firewall, and this is just an interface that you use for setting up, for making rules for firewall D, rules for IP tables, I mean. So UFW is just an easy way for you to create rules. Let's say maybe you want to check, let's first of all check if UFW is available on our Debian 10 install on Vultr. So I'm going to do UFW sudo UFW starters. So this just checks if it is active, and yes, it is active on our server. So if you want to add a rule, maybe you want to allow HTTPS, you want to allow HTTP traffic. So these are the default rules, right? You may need to add specific ports. Now the thing about firewall is that there is no one script that can help you achieve everything you need. It will be up to you. Every time you install a new software and you want to allow that software through your traffic, you want to allow that software through your firewall, you'll need to know the port or the name of the software. If you're using UFW, all you have to do, maybe you want to allow HTTP, you know, without HTTP, people can't access your website. So maybe you want to allow HTTP, all you have to do is sudo UFW allow. And just with that, HTTP traffic would be allowed through your firewall. You can also allow HTTPS. So you can just add all the rules that you need, block all the items that you don't want to work with. Maybe if you have specific IP ranges that have currently attacking your server, you can just block those on your server, and it's possible. So right now, let's see all the rules we've added. You're just going to do sudo UFW starters, right? So you can see we've allowed 80 and we've allowed for 43, which is HTTPS traffic. So that's just a brief of this UFW, and you can use it to quickly set up rules, block, allow, delete. You can even delete any of these rules, okay? If you want to delete any rule, there you can find brief instructions here. You can also find some of the links that I added here to help you with this. Now for me, I'm not going to bother with that. The next step is for us to set SSH key, and we're going to need, for SSH, we are going to need putty-gen. Now, if you install putty-gen, if you install putty, the official link for putty, I'm very sorry I didn't tell you this in the beginning of the video, but I should have done that. But if you go to the putty website, you can download putty and download the official installer, okay? Download it from the official website. Don't download it from anywhere else. This is the official putty website. So once you do that, just install this version, okay? Any of this version that you can see up here. This will come with everything we'll need, and we only need two things actually. We'll need putty, which is the one for logging in, the one we've used to log in, and we're going to need putty-gen, which is this, and putty-gen is already included in this setup. So install that, and then under Windows, you're going to open putty-gen, and then we're going to generate the key, okay? So let's just keep all this bit. You can read about this. If you're following along with the post, you can read all of this there, but I'm going to do the demo, so you can just watch the video. So even before I generate the key, the first thing I want to do is I want to deal with all these commands. I want to, first of all, make a directory on Linux. Even right now, if you look at your boot, if you're following along on an Ubuntu system, if you look at your home directory, you're probably going to see something there, a hidden file, hidden folder. Just enable show hidden directories, and you're going to see a .ssh file. So inside of this .ssh on Linux, this is where your authorized keys, this is where your public keys, SSH keys are stored, and they will be stored inside of this, okay? You can change the name of this, and if you change the name of this, you're going to need to go inside of the SSH file to change that, but we're going to use the default one, okay? We're just going to use the default, which is authorized keys. This is where Linux expects to find the public keys. So we're going to create this folder, and then we're going to create this file, and inside of this file, we're going to copy the key that we generate, and again we're going to add it in there, and then we'll be able to log into our server after that using SSH keys. It's just that simple. So first of all, let me make this directory. I can combine this and this, so this is not an error or anything. I guess this and this are just here together. You can combine this and this, just put this before the semicolon, or you can use two ampersands to combine. Okay, let me just do that as an example to show you what I mean. If I copy that, let me clear the screen. Right click to paste, and then let's come back, and I will copy this one as well. So this will run both of them. So what this is going to do is going to make this directory .ssh, and then it's going to make, inside of that directory, it's going to make this authorized keys file. Okay, sudo nano, it will open the file, and once we save it, the file will be created. Okay, so inside of this file, the file is created. You can see it there. Inside of this file, what needs to happen is we need to add our key. Okay, we need to add our key. So let's go generate our key, and then we're going to copy it inside here. So let me come in here, and I want to open up putty.Gen. So I need to open putty.Gen, and this is what I'm going to use to generate my SSH key. So I'm just going to click there on generate, and I can move my mouse just to generate the key, right? Okay, so the key is generated. Now, what do we have here? Here we have the public key, and the private key will also be saved. So you can save your private key with a key phrase, and you should, because this is like a password this is like a password for it. So if you're doing a production environment, make sure that you add a key phrase, and every time you log in, it will ask you for the key phrase before it can log you in to use your private key. Make sure you add this. I'm not going to add this simply because I don't want to go through the step of typing it in every time I try to log in with my SSH key for this. But in my production environment, I would definitely add the key. So you can see here we've generated a 2048 key. You can also generate 4096 if you want to, and I think Debian supports that. So for this, I'm just going to first of all save the private key. Are you sure you want to save this key without a passphrase? You can see even putty.Gen is suggesting that you add a passphrase. I'm just going to say yes, and this is because this is just for demonstration purposes, and I can just replace the key which is there already. So the next step is for me to get this public key. You can also save the public key. Now this public key is one that you can upload on different platforms. This is not the one that you paste in there. This is one that you can upload like during the installation process. You can upload this in there, and it will be added under your SSH authorized keys. But for me, the one that I want to take is that. Okay, so I'm just going to select at the very top, at the very beginning of that SSH RSA. That is a type of key that we've generated. And then to the end, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to copy. And as soon as I copy that, I will need to paste it. I will need to paste it inside of my putty. So under the authorized key, every key you can have multiple keys, but make sure all of them are on a single line. Okay, if they're not on a single line, then you're going to have a problem. So you can see this is in a single line. Okay, it's in a single line. That's very, very important. And as soon as you do this, you can just do Control X to exit nano, and then Y to accept the changes. All right, now our authorized keys have been added. The next step is we need to change the permissions for this folder, and we need to change the permission for that. And permissions are just so that we can improve the security for that and that. Okay. And before I even do that, let me just save this key somewhere. You never know, you may need it in future. So just use a plain text editor, copy it in there, and you can save it if you want to. For me, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to close everything, because yeah, I know everything is going to work out. Now, yeah, you can read that. Now the next step is let's change the permission for that, for the SSH folder. Copy, enter, and then we will also change the permission for the authorized keys. Now on Linux, if the permissions are wrong, if the permissions are too open, you won't be able to log in. So make sure you change the permissions for that. Okay. Now the next step is for me to try and log in using the key, using the private key that we've generated. So now the only step that you needed to do was to add the key, generate the key, and then add the key on the server. We've added our key on the server. So now we need to try to log in. Let's test if we can log in. And I'm going to test that by opening putty. I will open putty, and this is the one. I will load it because I want to get the IP address there. And then I'm going to come here under SSH, open up SSH, and then come here under auth. And here under auth, this is where you're going to browse to the location of your SSH key. So I'm going to browse there, and this is the location. Yeah, I think this is the one. Then I'm going to open, and I don't want to go through this step every time I want to log in, so I'll come back under session, and then I will click there to save, and that's going to save my private key link and my IP address and everything else. So the next time if I want to open up this server, all I have to do is I can just double click on that, and it's going to open it for me. So remember the user we were using new user. Do not do this under your root account. That's why we changed from root to the new user. Okay, so the server refused our key. So the reason why the server refused our key is very simple. We changed the permission from that to that, and this is our root level permission, and we haven't changed ownership. We haven't given ownership to this guy, and the guy that we need to give the ownership to is the new user. So this is the only reason why you've experienced that. So make sure you follow every step of this. Okay, so let me first of all put this inside of Notepad, and I'm going to paste it in there, and I want to change all instances of Joe. Joe is that. So you can see that when the server refuses the key, it gives you an opportunity to log in via the password, and we're going to disable this. We don't want this at all. So let's come back here, give a group of new user, and then user is new user, and then the home directory is that. So this is the only reason why it has refused. So we have to change the ownership, and we're changing it recursively. We change the ownership to this dude so that this guy has the permission to use that private key. At this point, that key is owned by the root user. That's why you try to log in a new server. You try to log in a new window without ruining the one that you already logged into. Okay. So we're going to do that. And as soon as we do this, let's try and see if now we can log in. And I'm going to run putty once again. And since we saved the session, all I have to do is I can just double click on it, and it's going to try to log us in with the key link that we provided under the authorization session. So you can see that it will automatically log you in. And the reason why it has logged me in automatically is because when I was creating the key, I did not add a passphrase. Now, a passphrase is very, very important. You have to add that, okay? Somebody might get access to your computer and they might take your private key. But if they don't know your passphrase, they won't be able to access your server. So make sure you add the passphrase, okay? It's important. Now that I know that we can log in via SSH, the next thing that I need to do is I need to disable the root user login into my server. So if someone knows, everyone knows that Linux has a root user. So with that comes security problems. Even when people try to log into your server, when people try to brute force into your server, most of the time they will use root. So make sure you disable the root login into your server. That's very, very important. Disable it. And then we're also going to disable password authentication. So you saw a situation whereby the last time I was unable to log in via the key, and yet the server asked me for a password, because that is now a secondary measure of login. We want to make sure that our server is only accessible via the auth key that we've generated that we've set up. So I'm going to go into my SSH config file, and then I'm going to remove password authentication, and I'm also going to remove root login. So let's just come here, and all of this is here. Okay, you don't have to worry about this. This stuff are all here. Okay, so I'm just going to open up the SSH configuration file there, and I need to disable root login, and I also need to disable password authentication. Only those two. Those are the only things I'm going to change. So I'm going to come in there, and I'm going to do, let's add the password. So now I'm logged in on the SSH part, and I can just close this other window. The password for this, there we go. Now here, I know I need to change the root login. You can search for it actually. Let me just show you the quicker way of searching for stuff here. You can just come in here. What is it? Permit root login. We need to change the value to no. So I will copy, and then I'll come back onto putty, and in putty I can just nano, I mean, this is specific on nano. I can do Control W. And then since we're on putty, I will right click to paste, and then I'll press enter to search. Permit root login. Yes, we need to change this value to no. So as I said, remember when you're on putty, try to avoid right clicking. This is a rudimentary tool. You have to scroll all the way to wherever you want to go. The value for permit root login needs to be no. So we'll delete yes and leave it at no. And then let's go. You see, you can also change some of these configurations here. Like if you want to make sure that the number of times somebody can try to log into the server is limited, you can do that. Okay, so maybe you want to reduce that. Let's make it maybe 4. You just know that if the 4th time you're unable to log into your server, something is wrong. In max sessions, how many people can log into the server? Of course, you need to, maybe it's just you, and for that I'll just leave it there, but you probably need to, limit that as well. You can limit it to 2 or 3 or even 1. And then what is pub key authentication? Pub key authentication. So this is default yes. And the reason why you may need to know about this is if somebody gets your private key, then you can come in here and you can uncomment this and change the value to no. That way, no one will be able to log in to your server using the key. So that's what that's about. But what we want is password authentication. There we go. Password authentication. We need to change the value to yes. Let's uncomment it. And then we'll change the value to no. So this means that if you don't have our private key, you won't be able to log into this server. There we go. So I will do Control X to exit nano, and then I'll do Y to accept the changes and press enter. So Control X, and then yes, I accept the changes, and then enter. So that's pretty much it. The next thing is we need to restart SSH. So I think it's usually sudo service SSH restart. So as soon as we restart SSH, the changes that we've made will be reflected. Right, so now let's try to log in using the root user. We've disabled the root user login and we've disabled the password authentication. So let's come back here and I'm going to open up putty. So this is why I wanted to use putty, because it's very easy to demonstrate things with putty on Windows. So I'm going to, let me just paste it from this side because I know I already saved that session and it has the link to my private key, and we need not to have that link. So I'm just going to try to log in and I'll just open it directly like that and log in as root. Let's try root. And you can see no supported authentication methods available. So you cannot log in as root on this server. Let's again try to log in using a password. So I'm going to paste that in. I will open, and this time round, let's try to log in with the new user because the root user will not be able to pass this stage. All right, so you can see no supported authentication methods available. So if I was to log in, I would need to add the link, and we've already added the link for our private key. So just remember, where you add the link, you come here under SSH, then you go into auth, and then you add the link there. But since you already have it saved in this session, you don't need to do that every time. You just double click on that and it's going to log you in automatically with the user whose SSH key has been set up. Okay, so just as I said, make sure that you add a passphrase, and it's going to add another level of security for your server. So I'm going to clear the screen. And I think the next step is for me to create a swap file. So a swap file is just a location that you can add that will be used for memory when memory runs out. The RAM memory runs out. When physical memory runs out, they will use the swap file. This is the same thing on Windows. What is it called in Windows? You can usually add this under your performer under system settings. So it's just the same thing. So what I'm going to do with this, so I can see, I think there's an error here. Let's just see. We can check if the swap is already created. So we're going to create a swap file, and then we're going to make it swap. The steps are all here. I can already see something like an error there. Sudo swap on show. Okay, so there needs to be 2 of this. Let me just go and edit that page first. So let's just check. Now let's come back into this. And the first step, we need to create a file that will be used as the swap file. Now, this is just a file, and you can give it any name. So it's going to create this file, and we want to allocate 2 GB to that file. I'm using 1 GB RAM. I could have used 3 GB, 4 GB, either way. But I'm going to use 2 GB. So I'm going to create the swap file, and the name is my swap file. You can call it whatever you want. You can even store it in a different location. If you don't want to store it in the root, then you can store it in a different location if you want to. That is, if you know what you're doing. If you don't, just do things like you can see them here. So I'm going to copy that. Let me just clear the screen first. Right click to paste. All right, so the file is created. The next step is to change the permission for that file. And if you change the name of the file, make sure you change its name appropriately and the location. Okay, so we're going to need to make it a swap file. This is going to convert this file into a swap file, and then it's going to activate it. Now, in this, we've combined 2 commands, and you can use 2 ampersands to combine 2 commands, and that's what I'm doing here. You can also use the semicolon like you saw in a previous section. So I'm going to copy that, and that's going to make it a swap file, and it's going to make it active. All right, so you can see the setting up has been done, and we have 2 GB of swap. So let's see if the sudo swap on thing is working now. So this is probably coming with some formatting. Let's just see if we type it in manually. Okay, so when I type it in manually, it seems to work fine. I think it's just coming in with some formatting that the system doesn't understand. Now, you can see that we do have the my swap file, and yes, 2 GB has been allocated to the swap file, but that is not the final. So at this point, if we were to restart the system is not going to recognize the swap file. That's why we need to add it here. So once we add it here, the system is going to know that this is part of the memory allocated to it. So let's open this file, and then we're going to add that line, and this is going to tell the system every time it logs in, every time it restarts, that it should also allocate that memory. It should also recognize that memory slot that has been added. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to open that, and at the very end of this, I want to add the line that we have, and I'm going to add this. So make sure you give it the name and the location in case you changed that. So I'm just going to copy this. Control X, Y, enter to exit nano, and that's pretty much it. So right now, if we do free-h, it's going to show you we have that memory. This is our physical memory, our RAM, and that's our swap. So if this is being used, you will know based on the free memory that is available for it. So that's how you can create the swap file. Now the next step, let's just finish up by installing. Let's finish up by installing Virtualmin. So we're going to install Virtualmin, and we want the LEMP stack. So if you've watched any of my previous tutorial, you know that I would rather use the LEMP than LAMP stack, especially on a small VPS like this. So if you do have like 1 GB, 2 GB RAM, just do yourself a favor and use LEMP or use Open Lightspeed, okay? Because if you use Apache, your server, especially if you want to run WordPress or any PHP-based websites like Magento and just the likes, you're going to have a problem whereby your server is you're going to get server 500 errors, okay? So just avoid Apache when you're in a small VPS. Do yourself a favor and use LEMP stack because it's going to save you in resources, okay? So that's why I prefer to use the LEMP stack. And for this, you can do wget. This, you don't need sudo for this. It's just downloading this and putting it there, and then you're going to install the LEMP stack. So let's come back here, and I'm going to paste in. Let me clear the screen. Wget that, all right? So it's been gotten. Let's do sudo SSH install, and we want the LEMP bundle. So please note that we want the LEMP. So this is a problem on my WordPress. I will need to use, I don't know, it's adding and removing some formatting on everything that I add here. And this is definitely a problem. So anyway, let's just do sudo sh install. Bundle LEMP. So if you can read here, you'll see that systems currently supported at that. If your OS is not in the list, the installation will fail. The selected bundle package is LEMP, and that's what we want. And that's exactly what you're going to get. So I'm going to do yes to accept. Y, press Y to accept, enter. And this is going to install Virtualmin and everything it needs, okay? So this is a complete install. It's going to install everything you need, even the server, mail server, DNS server, everything you need is going to get installed, and you can run your website with that. I believe there are tutorials on this, and I might do a couple in future for Virtualmin. If you want this tutorial, just let me know and I will create it. For now, let's just wait for this to install. Okay, so the installation is complete. You can go into your dashboard. You can go into Virtualmin dashboard using the link. If you've already set up, if you have set up the DNS records for this, you can visit it using the site, but I haven't set up the DNS record, so I'll need to use my IP address. I'll need to use my IP address because if I go here, nothing's going to happen. There's no DNS record set up for this. So I can just come in here and I'll copy my IP address and I will go and paste it in there. Paste. And if I go inside, this is going to get me inside of my Virtualmin. And the first time you go here, this is a self-signed certificate. And that's why you're getting this error, but I'll just continue. So you can log in using your root password, and you can also log in using the new user password. So these are the users you created on your SSH account. That's how you're going to log into Webmin. Webmin is a console that runs your server. Virtualmin is built on top of Webmin, runs on top of Webmin to help you manage your server. So I'm going to use the new user that I created. There we go. Now you're logged into your server and you can do the post server installation, post Virtualmin installation. And this tutorial is not about Virtualmin. You can go ahead and watch and read more on the documentation Virtualmin, the post installation wizard, to see what you can set up. Just click next and choose the right settings based on your server and based on your needs. So that's it for this video. In this video, just a recap, what we've done is you've seen how you can do a Debian 10 initial server setup. Okay. So everything has worked fine for us. So something that I noticed is that my site is stripping out the second hyphen. So here there are supposed to be 2 hyphens, okay, without any space. And I don't know, I'm going to see what the issue is, but there's supposed to be 2 hyphens. There, even here, it's supposed to be 2 hyphens. So if you experience that problem, just put in 2 hyphens and the command is going to run successfully. So in this video, you've seen how you can set up Debian 10 if you want to run it on Vultr or any VPS. And I do intend to do another tutorial for DigitalOcean. I'll set up a server and follow the same guide once again. So I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, feel very free to let me know. If you don't have a Vultr account, go ahead and use the link in the description, and it's going to provide you with $100 credit in your new Vultr account. See you next time.